All right, we're back. We just finished talking about hashing a password. We are COMP1006 in the winter 2017 semester, and we are week 11, part 4 of our broadcast. We're going to talk about how to create a unique username. We're going back to the beginning when we first did registration. Also, we still have a couple of issues, and I'm going to bring those issues up right now. I'm just going to close this one down for a second, and I'm not sure why I have this one open. Yeah, okay. It's almost like all my old stuff just came up. What we want to do over here is, and we're on the Windows side now. We've logged in successfully with Peter Parker, but the problem is Thomas now will never log in. Why is that? No, and now we have to rehash everything, right? So we need to re-register some of our superheroes, right? Because what's happened is we've changed the registration, the way we hash and decrypt. Well, we don't decrypt. The way we hash our passwords and the way we enter passwords in. Notice these are all up until now we've been using clear text passwords, right? We can't use that. So all these usernames right now are incorrect. Okay, so let's just get rid of them all. Now this is interesting because it's also going to change the order of our IDs, which again shouldn't really matter.
So if you're using your live database, you just have to run in Navbar.
That's what I did. I changed. I mean, you want me to change the username to an ID to something else?
No, I mean like if it was on the set of PHP live Azure.
Yeah, so you'd be using MySQL Workbench.
Oh,
you go through there. Yeah. All right. So what you want to do here is we want to create another one, but we want to do it through our website, not here. We don't want to do it here because it won't hash anything here, right? And also up to this point, what I want to do also is display the display name on the navbar, right? Because the navbar itself can receive the display name, right? We have that information, right? So let's see if we can get that. Well, I mean, think about what WordPress does. WordPress has it on the top right. Hey, howdy, so-and-so. Same thing. What we're going to do, right? Okay, so one of the things we didn't check so far when we log in, right? Or sorry, when we register, we don't check for unique username. So here's the username, right? Where we're checking to see if this is correct, right? And what we're going to try and do is, what if? Right, here's the message. Look at this message that we get in. This is the message we're getting in, right? But what if the username is not unique, right? So I want to definitely try doing that before I insert into my database, right? And that's what I want to go to now. So I still need to do this DB connection, right? Here's our DB connection, right? And we're still going to check to see if my username is already set. So if the username comes in, if it's trying to log in or register a new username, we're going to check to see if that's true, right? Here we're going to get our config.database right away, right? So we got this piece, right? We've already got it up here, right? And our DB is DB connection. This is coming from our database. We may need to do this a little higher up, right? But we want to try and do another try catch, right? To make sure that we don't have any kind of error, right, when connecting. That's why we put it in a try catch in the first place. Try catch is there to protect us just in case, for example, we have no access to data. We lost that connectivity. We don't want our application to crash, right? And that's why we use try catch. We want to try and catch an exception that can occur. So here's our try catch. We'll try. Of course, it doesn't give us the option, right? Yeah. Let's see if I double tap if it'll do it. No. Of course not, right? And catch. Now we want to try and catch, just like it says here, where we have an exception with something else that makes sense. So we're going to say exception. We're going to kind of load it. Now this is only local. So E is, we can use the same variable, because even though this is the same as this. It's in a different scope. Scope is only in this code block, right? And I want to try and keep this where my message is equal to this message, whatever the message, whatever is causing the error, right? So that same kind of stuff is what we want to do, right? Try catch. And instead of our try, we want to do something very similar where we kind of connect to the database again. DB is equal to DB connection, right? I want to try and do that. And this is again in this local scope. So it's nothing to do with this one, right? Now what I want to do is I want to query the database, right? Where I want to have a query, right? Like it does here. So let's set up a query. And my query is equal to what? I want to get, right? I want to select from the database, right? Star from the database. All, right? And if I return any results, right, that match the username, right, already present, the username, where username is equal to username, right, then I want to not do the user activity and redirect them back to the registration page with a message. No, or the username, yes. But let's suppose we're not hashing the username right now. Okay, we just want unique usernames for now. Okay, so where my username, so again, it's select, right? So we select star, right? We select star from users, right? Right, where, and this is where the next part, where my, and again, if I was doing this properly, where my username, right? And that's just like we put in here for our, when we log in, right? The select statement here from users is equal to this username idea. This whole thing here is actually the exact same thing we're going to use, right? That's our hash, or that's our my query. My hash is in my head right now. It's my fault, right? So let's just put that in there. So that's the query that we're going to do, right? And then what we want to create is a statement, right? Where we want to make it equal to our query. Remember the way it works. Statement is the DP prepare query. The same part right here is exactly the same. Uh-oh, we're duplicating, right? Duplicating means opportunities. Yeah. So I'm going to grab all this stuff right here. It's almost like we're logging in for the first time again, right? So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to put that here, right? Now we're not going to fetch, right? Actually, we don't want to fetch at all. What we want to do here instead is we want to see if we're going to return anything, right? Just like we had done before, right? So remember what we did before. We don't care about password. This is not necessary. And we don't want to fetch the password. We want to select star, right? Select star from users where my username is equal to username. And if I fetch, or if I fetch one, I'm going to fetch the first one that I'm going to get back that matches. Right? Do I have to even do this? Is my question, right? I don't have to. I don't have to return anything. I don't want to return. I don't want to store anything anywhere, right? I just want to check, just like I did before, if my I don't return a record. Remember how I did that last time? Now I erased that, but it's up on GitHub, right? So for every time we have a look, right? And if I look at GitHub, that's a great thing about GitHub. And if I look at Centennial, Georgian, I'll be okay. Tiredness, my friends. And if I look at my is it register or user? No, user. Users login. Users login. So if I look at my login, right? See this part here, row count. If statement row count is equal to 1, it means I have a match. Shouldn't have one, right? So that's what I need here. I need actually this exact string right here, and then I want to close my cursor, right? I definitely do not want to start my my session, right? Because that's not what I want here, right? So I want to put this part. So again, I'm just breaking it up from the same thing. So I don't need this at all. So I'm not going to store anything. So what I want to do is I want to redirect, right? So if this is true, right, we have a match, right, a username match. And that means that it's not unique. Username is not unique, right? And if it's not unique, I want to redirect. Else, finish. And let it fall through, right? Because this is going to try this, and if it's good, this is our, and then in fact, this whole thing could be a method. This could be a little function we make, right, that we call, because it's not all one piece of code. Now, probably not going to check this ever again, so we don't need to make it into a function, but usually we compartmentalize functions so that way they're not crazy, right? And what I might do, because I eventually want to separate my users, make my user controller. Remember we talked about making a user controller? I would take all this stuff out and make it into functions in my user controller, and so my page and my logic is totally separate. Right now, my page, my logic is one, right, which is not model view controller, right? Make sense? So let's try this out. So this is one. So I want to do this, and I want to redirect. And remember, what we want to do is we want to take a header, right? We want to move this, like use this header idea to go back and redirect us back to the page somehow, back to the registration page. Now, again, if we went down here, right, we want to kind of slide on down to the message where my message is equal to something. Example would be username, not unique, or invalid username. Let's try it out. So instead of redirecting, we're already here, right? So what we're going to do is do a couple things. So we're going through this try catch, right? And before we get to this piece where we do our insertion, we're going to skip over it. We're going to say if this row count, something like that, is equal to 1, we're going to close the cursor, assign a value to some other variable, check it here, and if that variable is equal to not this value, whatever the value is, right, not unique or something like that, then move on, right? So what we normally do is in our method, we check to see if my variable is unique, try doing this. If not, my username is unique, try doing this. If not, right, then move on and return a message. For what?
Couldn't you just have it else?
In here, you're talking about. Yeah, but so what if you have it here? There's no else.
You could put all that else in that in. You're going to set a value and check that value. And if it equals 1,
that means we found something. No, right? If we found something, we have a match for username. We don't want to do any of this stuff down here either, right?
So you could do an else because there is no value to go with else.
And we put all this inside the else.
Yeah.
Yes, we could do that.
Saving a value.
Yes, we can do that. That's definitely something we can do. Just it might be a little bit confusing for some, but okay. I'm just breaking it out.
I'm just trying to figure out.
No, I agree with you. I think it's perfectly fine if you did that but then you'd have to see where we closing the cursor here, right? Yeah, you know what? That's what I'm saying. Keeping it simple is kind of simple. So a couple things. One thing is at the bottom here, when we come down to the final area here, right? So my messages is equal to nothing, right? This is my message variable, right? And that's this else, and that comes with this which we're gonna call if statement, right? Well, look what it says. This is the good thing about PHP Storm. It kind of gives you the if statement, which is if is set post username, right? Else message is equal to this. If it's set, do this. Otherwise, message is equal to this. Okay. So if it's set, we're setting a message only when there's an error, right? So it's going to have a message that carries forward down here anyway. My scope is, right, that messages themselves, because here's messages. This would never get down there, right? These messages will never carry forward into that area to display. And the reason why is because there is no messages in the global scope in here. We haven't set that up. So the right thing to do would be set up a messages variable, which is equal to that, right? And then this messages would actually be now this one, right? So what I want to do in here is set up a messages variable that says or set the message variable to have a message, which is invalid username, right? Because we don't know what the error is. We just an invalid username. Try something else. If I tell them it's too long or too short or whatever, too much information. That's one. So it's going to skip down here. I'm not going to redirect anything. Right now, down here, right? I need to have another variable to check. I could check this. If message is equal to invalid username, right? I could do that, right? So if it's not equal to this.
So you can just turn that into a function.
Right. I can turn this whole thing into a function and say if it's this, and then if it's not true, then continue, right? So example would be all this itself, this part right here, which, because I need this piece, my config database, I could turn this one into a function, right? That I would call in the user's controller, which we don't have right now. For now, let's just use another variable. So we're going to say
Should you not have a close cursor after that if statement? Because if it's false, then you just leave that cursor over. Right? Because it's inside that if statement.
we probably should close it already. We should probably close it right away.
Can you close it and still?
Oh no, you can't do the statement. No. Else close it. Either way, close it.
Or just have it at the end, outside of the if statement.
So I could, either way, I could just test it. You're right. And what you're saying is put it here. Oops. Put it. Here.
Yeah.
Sorry. Lifted a bunch of other stuff. That's why I didn't. It's PHP Storm, to be honest with you. It's a weird way of copying and pasting, and I don't like it. Yeah. Yeah, and then kill this one. Yes, you're saying that otherwise I won't be able to check to this, and it'll be wrong. And I agree with you. So yeah, so this is one change we have to make. The other problem we have is, like I said, if once we carry through, we have to be able to check to see if the username is valid. So I'm going to say something like, is username valid? Is username unique? Something like that. Some long thing. We're going to say by chance, by default, it's false. Okay. And then if this is true, we're not changing anything. Else, it is true. Else, right? Is username unique is equal to true, right? For checking, if we get a username, a valid username, is username is equal to true, right? That's the else, right? So now, if is username is equal to true, right? Then we want to take this thing right here and pass it to the bottom. And we're going to restructure our code. So, all the way down to the try catch here, right? Because that's the internal try catch, not inside the else. There we go. Right? Makes sense? So I'm burying this in. I'm basically, it'd be like me calling a function. If this function, blah, blah, check username. And if it's true, then we can do this. Otherwise, don't register because it's the same username. And then if it isn't true, then we're going to get this messages. It's going to go through here, and it's going to give me a messages right here. My message is not equal to blah, blah. Give me my message. What's the message that's in the top of my registration page? It's going to take me back to the registration page again. Yeah, let's see if it works. We don't know if it's going to work, right? All I know is just saying, right?
Seems logical.
In my mind, right? Let's see what happens. Okay, so we're going to go back to our page, and we want to register a user, Peter Parker, again. Right, so here's our registration. We're going to say Peter Parker, right? Because we already have Peter Parker. I want to get the error. I want to get the error first. Whenever I do testing, I always want to have the error come back, right? So Spider-Man, submit, invalid username. See how beautiful that is? And that's the message that I want to come up when I match. So I did the check in the database, and it came back with, hey, I already have them. Now we only have one user in the database. So that was easy to do. Let's add one. That's not Peter Parker. So we're going to say something like Tony Stark. Right? The password will still be 1234556. We'll say Ironman, be unique, and submit. Very cool. Now we have to log in, right? And we're going to get that whole algorithm to log us in when we register too. I want to do that. All right. So how? And I want you to think about how to do that. How would we log in automatically, right? It's an insertion again, right? We're copying, we're duplicating, right? This is where once you register, log in right away. Log them in, right? So here's an example. Log in, invalid username and password. Well, here's my username. I just register them, right? Is my password wrong? Oh, this is wrong. Of course it's wrong. Tony Stark. That's good. That's actually exactly what we should get. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Log in. Beautiful, right? So we're logged in, right? And now we have a way of checking to see if our username is not unique. In the database, also good to understand what the database is happening, what's going on here. So let's take a look now. You can see that we have 2 different hashes, but look at the top, the first 4 characters or 5, 6 characters are the same. The salt is different. Salt is based on, that's why we tried to hash and rehash, didn't work, because the salt is based on the date and a bunch of other factors, right? So that's why it didn't work. But notice that they're totally different, right? And this one is 60 characters, and so is this one, right? And it doesn't matter how it gets installed, because 10 and 9, they both got installed in here. It's showing users in here, but they're unique, and you can't, log in. Okay, so good. We've taken care of that issue, but now I want to log in, right? And I want to show you the reasons why a controller makes sense, right? So, okay, so I'm registering. Let me go to my register PHP page, and now we want to log in. So as soon as I register them, so I do this part now, and as soon as I'm done, instead of taking a header to index.php, which would be okay, right? I just registered, but he's not logged in. I want to log him in and take him into the secure area of the site, right? So now, how do I do that? How do I log him in? Well, my login function is here, right? Here's my login, where I do my select password and all this stuff. Damn, imagine if I type all this again. That's why we make a controller, right? There is no, in PHP, there is no login function. You make it, right? So we need to cut this out, because I want to be able to do this. I want to be able to log my user in. It makes sense. It's from a user experience perspective. You don't want to get them log in after he registers. It doesn't make any sense, right? So let's do that. So first of all, it comes down to more of our reordering of stuff. I'm just going to close all these off and I'll open them back up again, just so that way we don't have a lot of stuff in our head over here, right? And it is a great place to put up our terminal and go up in GitHub, throw things up on GitHub, because it's a great place for that, right? So we'll say git at dot commit -m, and we'll say migrated to secure password. That's what we did, right? And git push origin master, which basically says push to the origin remote, the connection we have with our GitHub, to the master branch. That's what it is. If you had another branch, we'd change that to something else. If I wanted to rename the origin to something else, we could call it whatever, default, or whatever you want to call it. What we normally use with Git is origin. That's just the name that everyone uses. It doesn't have to be that name. Enter. And then this will push everything up to GitHub. So we have a latest version up on GitHub, which you could check now. Right, so it's not like, it's not up there. Okay, now, time check. We have a few minutes. We don't want to do all of this because it takes a lot of time and effort to do. But in our controllers, we want to make a new PHP file. And we want to call our new PHP file users.php. Games users. Okay. We're going to get rid of this whole thing eventually, right? Remember how we did this? We're going to move it around and all this kind of stuff, right? For now, even our is authenticated, this little piece here, if you think about what this could be a function, right? We're going to check to see if the person's authenticated, right? And we're going to run it when it's called. We're going to call this function when we want to check to see if the person's authenticated. And it's going to return either false or true or false. If it returns true or false, we can check. And if it's false, the person's not authenticated, redirect them back, right? Or we can get them just call the function and let it redirect if the session is not there. Same thing. However you want to look at this, this needs to be a function, is authenticated. It should not be a single PHP file sitting in the ether. Doesn't make any sense.
So do you put all functions together, or do you put functions based on what they're dealing with in the system?
So usually from a controller's perspective, whatever section I'm using, my logic is related to the context. So for example, my context in this case is users, right? So if I'm using all users functions, going to be grouped in the same controller. Now, if you want to break it off, you can do that too. Like there are sometimes they make controllers where they have subcontrollers, right? Let's not go there. Let's just keep it simple, right? So keeping it simple, we'd have instead of our users folder, right? Instead of users, file, we're going to have this function. It's going to be called isAuthenticated, right? And it's going to be a function. So let's do that first. So we're going to say, again, PHP. And we're going to close off the PHP, right? And we're going to say function, right? And the function is going to be called, now just like we did, just to give you an example of what we did before, if you guys forgot. We use the name function, the name of the function, and any kind of inputs and any kind of outputs if we return anything, right? So going back to users, the name of the function will be isAuthenticated or whatever, isAuthenticated, right? If check, you can say check if authenticated. That might be a better way of doing it, right? Check if authenticated. There we go. Again, you can make this whatever you like, right? So my check if authenticated function is going to be the exact same as my is authenticated, which is you're going to do this check right here. We're only going to do one function at a time. I always test when we start off. We don't do a lot because the more we do, it's like needle in a haystack, right? That's it. So what are we saying here? When this function is called, it's going to check to see if the session is logged in. If not, header. Otherwise, nothing. It'll return 0, right? So it won't do anything actually, right? And if you really want to, right, you can, if check if authenticated, if it's true, what you could do if you really want to is return true, right? So now, not only that, but you can somehow, if you really want to, just return a 1. It's returning a 1. Right, that's what it's doing. It's returning something. You don't have to do this, but because this will never happen. It'll go here, but if it's authenticated, you'll get a 1 back. Right? You'll get a true. And if it's a true, it won't redirect. I won't read it. If it's redirecting, we'll never read it. Right? It'll just redirect it. But if it's true, it'll return true.
Oh, that's if not.
Right. This is if not set. So, but if otherwise, it'll return true. If it returns true, then you can put it in an if statement. If check if authenticated, right? And then if that's true, then you can continue. If not, and something else. We're not going to use that. We can just call it check if authenticated. The return true is just another option for us from a coding perspective. That's all it's going to be, right? So we're building in this function so it returns a value. And actually from a test-driven development perspective, we always want all functions to return something. Every function, right? Even if they don't do anything. Because we can always test them. We say, well, is it return true? Yes, great. If it didn't return anything, fail, right? So it's pass fail is what we want to try and do with test-driven development. We're not doing that in this course, but that's what we want to do. So now, wherever we have is authenticated, we want to just call this new controller, users controller, and we want to check if authenticated. And it's going to be a bit of busy work in the beginning, right? But let's see. So here's our login, right? Now do we check to see if, when we're here, do we ever check to see when we're logging in if the person's already logged in? You know what I'm saying? No, you know what I'm saying? Like, why would we log a person in if they're already logged in?
Yeah.
Right? So that's something that shouldn't be checked. Like here, we're checking to see if the username is there. Cool. What if they're already logged in, right? We shouldn't need to log them in again, right? So that's something that we should redirect, right? So let's try this out. So the way that we would do that, we would be, again, we would include once. We're gonna go to that particular place. Now we're starting, because this is our database. Include once is going to start at the root, and it's going to look down at our controllers users, right? So that's what the path is. So controllers, right? And then we're going to go to the users, right? .php. We're going to include that. And then underneath there, we're going to check to see if it's authenticated. So we're going to call that function. We're just going to say, check if authenticated, right? So because we got this controller, now the method is right here, right? In our users, right? Which is this, check if authenticated. So copy, right? If it's already authenticated, right? If it's already authenticated, if it's true, it's already authenticated, I want to redirect them now. Now I can use this in an if statement, even here, right? Otherwise, where are they going to go, right? They can go back. They're going to go back to the login page here, right? If it's false. But then it's going to perform this check again, right? And it's going to keep on performing this check every single time, and that's not good, right? But I definitely don't want to redirect them back here. Like if they come back here to the page, if they're already authenticated, right? If authenticated is true, we should redirect them out of here, right? Otherwise, move on, right? But the otherwise, there's no otherwise. There's no false. The is authenticated option, right? If I go back to this thing, to the users, it redirects them automatically for you back to the login page as it is. That's bad. You see what I'm saying with this? It's going to redirect you back to the same check again. It's going to redirect you back. It's going to be an endless loop. It's going to keep redirecting you back to here. So I can't, even though I like to, I can't do it, right? So that's kind of logic that if we wanted to, we couldn't check it here. But this is the way we do it. If we had a different kind of set, we can change the method later on. Where else do we kind of check the login is authenticated? Well, in our games, we definitely check it in our games thing right here. So down in here inside of our games list, we check here is authenticated. Users in our users folder is authenticated, right? I want to, one at a time, just do this. Oh. Well, I want to do that, but I don't want to do this. I want to change this one. I'm going to kind of copy this one out and put it inside there. I want to check not users authenticated. This is going to be controllers, then users.php, right? That's where I want to check, and I'll just comment this one out. So if this works, right? If this works, we can check to see if the user authenticated, and we have our first view into our users controller. Does that make sense? Because we're replacing a function that's written out here with a function that's inside there. We're just moving this logic inside of here. So I'm trying to get rid of the whole users folder itself. Whole users folder is incorrect, right? Because it has logic and view tied together. That's the problem with it. The logic and view is together, and because of that, not correct. Let's try and run this thing. I'm sorry, I know this is tiring, but bear with me for a minute more. Log out. Yay. Okay, Thomas doesn't exist. If I log in, incorrect username and password. If I log in with, let me register him finally. Yeah. Submit. Okay. Log in. We're going to think about this thing. That's why I did this, right? Log in. Cool, right? And we're here. If I do my games list now, it just checked. So I know I passed. I know that whole thing we did worked, right? Okay, that means And this is where my small baby steps come into place, right? This is the original code that was there, right? We can get rid of it. Now we have to check to see if every other thing is authenticated inside of our games. Like, for example, our details page. So this same information, the same way we did our list, right? This controller stuff is going to take the place of this, right? And I'm going to get rid of all these comments here because we don't need them anymore, right? So check to see if authenticated, great. If it's true, fantastic, great. Move on. If not, get out of here, right? And same thing over here. So enter that in. Save. Same. So we're getting rid of that whole function. We're going to test it out now, right? Because it's the first thing we test to see if we can keep a secure site the way normally we could before, right? Okay, great. Let's try this out now, and then we'll stop for the day. Okay, because we're going to build the user's controller. I mean, it's just another exercise of removing the logic from the user controller into our user controller, and then we're going to strip that out and put it into our views, right? Which, you know, there's not a lot of new stuff here. It's just repetition, right? Okay, so now we're still logged in. I'm going to add a new game. I want to add a new game called another new game. And $9.99. Submit. Cool, another new game. I want to edit. Cool, I can edit. If I can edit, that means it's not bouncing out. Good, excellent. Delete. Yes, killed. Now, log out. And let's go into my page ID, which is games list. So index.php, my page ID is games list. Can I get there? No. All right. I mean, it worked right there. You know it's working, right? Otherwise, if I couldn't get there, then good. So that means in our new code, we don't need this anymore. Get rid of it. Does that make sense? Because we put it here, inside here, right? Same thing with the login. This is the next one I want to conquer. And I'm not sure if we have time to do this today, but take a look, right? We want to do this selection statement, right? You want to do it where we have this information, username and password, right? Right now, it's coming from this. Username and password is this, right? We want to do a try DB connection. That's okay. This try catch is good, right? And config that database. That's good, right? But this part shouldn't be in here. This should be out here, right? Because we want to pass this in to the function, right? We shouldn't be defining it in our function. We're gonna make a new function. This shouldn't be defined in our function. It should be outside of our function, which would be out here, where it says if post username. So we're gonna move that out there. So it means it should be here, right? But the order doesn't matter, right? I mean, it's just doing that. Include once, config.database and all that stuff. This part should be inside of our function, right? Because we're doing that database for the first time, right? We're connecting to the database, right? Now, just like we did with our games.php, right? We did it at the top, which is what we're going to do for this one, right? So we might as well, since we're going to connect, we're going to include that into our database, and we might do it separately. We might as well do it inside of our users.php at the top. Again, this is only if we're going to use our database, and we're going to, right? Every time we're going to be using our database for database operations for anything that we do. This doesn't need it, but other things do. And if it's only going to include it one time, it's not going to clash, right? So it's safe to do it. Now, going back to our login, what I want to do is now I can get rid of this. Actually, we know we've included it. Again, remember, I have stuff on GitHub. So worst case scenario, we revert, right? And that's why we do our stuff. So on the try, anything underneath the try, right? And I'm just gonna zoom down here until we get to this part here. So try catch, not the else. This is something else. This is because of this set, right? That we have to still check, right? Because otherwise we're not coming back here logging in, right? So this part though, all this stuff, right, where we check to see if the user is logged in and rehash and dehash and all that stuff, we need to take that out of there. Boop. Now look at this is what I'm talking about when I say there's no logic, right? Or minimal logic, right? And now we're going to take this, and we're going to go to our users, right, PHP. And inside there, we're going to define a new function, which is going to be login function. And we're going to take two variables, right? We're going to get a username and a password. That's going to be carried through. We're going to kind of slip that in, right? And now we've got our password and our username that's coming into our function. And no longer do we have to do what we did before. That's the exact same method that we used before. There's nothing different, nothing changed here from anything else. Now, the one thing that happens is this exception where we return a message, right? This message, the only time we return a message if there's a problem, right? And there is no way of returning it back. Like this message will get lost because this message doesn't make any sense anymore, right? Like everything is good, it's fine. This message invalid username and password, how's that going to come out? Right? So we need to return this message out, right? That's what has to happen, which means we have to define it. It won't be defined in the global space anymore. No. So what we do is here in the top, we define our messages as equal to blah, blah, right? Follow me here for a second. And then what we're going to do in the bottom, right on the bottom, before we exit this thing, we're going to return. Remember I told you we have to return something every time? Right? The right thing to do, return messages. Right now, we don't care what the message is, right? The message might be nothing, which is good, right? But if the message is something, we're going to return it and we're going to show it on the screen, right? So that's the only thing it does, returns messages. It returns a string, actually. Okay, so save that. That's our function. We have our function. We're done, right? Now, going back to login. Now that we have our function, it's called login. We need username and password, and it's going to return messages. Well, we can do this, right? Messages is equal to login, where we need the username and password. Now, the reason why we can't log in yet is because inside here we need to do an include once, right? Include once. We're going to include that. We're starting at the top level again. We're going to go to our controllers. Then we want to go to and inside of our login, we're going to pass in these two things: username and password. So username and then password. The username and password is coming from the form. That's what's happening when it comes here. Right? And then it's going to be username and password login. And then we're going to have a message, right? Whatever that message is. Usually the message is going to be blank, nothing. However, what if they're trying to log in with the wrong username and password? It's going to have that. It's going to save that message, and then we're going to be able to pass it down into here, into the error right here in this alert area, right? If that makes any sense. Beautiful. Let's try it. Because that's the next step. First we try, we make a modification, and then we try doing it. And if it doesn't work, then we're in trouble, right? So let's say refresh the page. Good. Let's log in. Beautiful. Games. Beautiful. Right? Log out. Log in. Work. Right? So these are good checks to make, right? So now that we have this, remember I said I want to log in when I register? We got it, right? This is just call the login option again now, right? And that's where it becomes, that's why the whole model view controller thing becomes so beautiful, because as opposed to, well, I got to do this whole login thing again. Why? That doesn't make any sense, right? Why would I do that again, right? Whereas I already have the function, I can do it right here. So I'm just going to our register page, which by the way, we're going to get rid of eventually. But in our register page, if the user successfully registered, which is going to happen, and again, we're going to pull that in a second, right? So we're going to do this, and we're going to call in that password. Actually, before we do any of this, because before we refactor the register page, we want to include this as a function too, right? The registration function, right? So again, models user, that's the user model itself. We don't use the user model, but you know, again, what I'm going to do here, I don't think I use the user model at all. And just make sure that I'm not using it anywhere. I just passed it in. I'm just reading. Okay, so how does this work? This to do is done, right? The username is equal to post this, the config the database, that can come out. We know that that's not going to be necessary anymore because we're going to do all that stuff. We're going to do this statement like we did before. We're going to check to see if the username is, we're getting the username. And then we're going to try to pass in the username and to check to see if the username is logged in. Now, where are we getting the password from? Because we're trying to see, we're registering, right? We're registering. So we still got to get the password from somewhere.
That's the part that's just checking it.
Yeah, but there's somewhere else we're getting the, this is right here. So we're going to do this up here. We're not going to do this down here, right? Because it doesn't make any sense. I want to cut this, and we'll put it back up here again, right? Just because now we can pass in username and password again, right? And we have to do that any other way. So now that we've got this, we're going to take this try and the other try too. And we're going to return up to, I believe, there. You see? Try, no, I think I have to go one more further. Fifth. Sorry, I just want to make sure I don't have this one. So this catch goes to this try. This one goes to here, to this catch. This one, I need to go to here. Yeah, I need to go to here. And then the rest is the other parts. And we will cut this out. Yeah. Right? Makes sense? Now we're going to go back into our users.php. And instead of our users.php, we're going to do the same thing. What is going on? Yes, so we have login and we have a register function. So login goes here, and now we're going to do a register function. So function register, where we're passing in our username and password. And we're going to just plop that in there. And we're going to save some space. And we're good to go. There's a register function. No changes. Now we need to return messages, right? And we're going to define messages up here at the top. We're going to say messages is equal to da-da. And then we're going to say message is equal to so-and-so, whatever it's going to be. And way at the bottom here, see, that's username is unique. And that's the full function. That's a beautiful thing. I like that. So now here we're going to say return messages. Beautiful, right? That's going to be our register function. Fantastic. Now that we go back here, we're going to go to our register.php page, and we're going to register for the first time. We're going to say messages is equal to register. We're going to register our username and our password. But we also need to include at the top of our page somewhere, or in here after if the username is set. We'll include that, include once. We're going to have in that controllers and slash users.php. Okay. Like there's no code here really at the end of the day. All it is just checking, right? Okay, cool, right? So now let's check it. Made the change, we check the change, right? Because we don't want to do anything like this. Now, oh, well, this is something interesting. Is user unique? Is username unique? That should be actually. I don't know what happened there. But this here has to be inside of our other function. So yeah, no, because I put that at the top. But what it needs is inside of our users, I need to define that as well. Okay. We don't care about that. We just care to check if username is unique down here, right? So that's it. Okay, cool. So that's the one part that was missing. Sorry, man. No, Alex, you're dying. I apologize. Let's see if I can register another user. That's the idea. So file, save all. And we're going to go into here, and we're going to register a new user. And we're going to register Clark Kent. Clark Kent, 2456. We'll call him Superman. Why not? And if this works, we're good to go. And we'll log in. And let's say log in Clark Kent. There we go. And log in. Beautiful. Games list. Now we're going to do that thing.
You just call that function.
Yeah, that's the beautiful thing. Once we register, call we're done, and it's inside the same file, so I don't have to refer to it or anything at all, right? So, so now we're going to go back into our users controller, and inside of our registration function, here's a now notice I called login here, and I'm calling register down here, just in case. There's no order, but I like to put my functions below. This one's already been defined, so I can call it, right? So now let's think about what we're doing here. Instead of going to our index.php, right? What does this do? This takes us back to our index.php. Both of them do that, right? Both my login and my register go back to index.php. This is a great opportunity when I register just to log in, right? So I'll log in. So if everything is good, log in. So here, we're just going to pass in the username and password. So log in, right? And we're going to pass in username and password. And we're also going to assign this to messages. We're going to say messages equal to, because that's the kind of guys that we are. Just in case, right? Never going to happen. We're not going to get a weird response, but just in case, it's right here. We're just logging in again. We're calling this whole function again, right here. So instead of having to do all that and check and see and whatever, we're just going to do it automatically. And there's nothing for the user to do. It just happens behind the scenes. Let's test it. This is new functionality, right? So we're going to log out. We're going to register a new user. We're going to call him. We'll make another one. Who else? Who? Harley Quinn. Huh? Yeah, I guess so. Harley Quinn. How do you spell her name? See, I don't know either. I can't remember how you spell her name. Oh, come on, right? Professor X, right? There we go. We don't know. That's enough. We can call him Professor X too. Professor. Right, or Professor X. There we go. Submit. Okay, and that's what I want to see because we have to test it, right? Session has already been started. Okay. Oh. Okay. Now that's another thing we have to fix. But I'm happy that we countered this error. And this is what I'm saying. We do one thing at a time, because if we don't, yeah. So we session start and register as well. Where do we do a session start? So we have to check to see if we're already. Is there session start on the actual? No, we want to check if is set session, then otherwise session start. Yeah, we are. But I want to check to see if the session is set. Session status, right? That kind of thing. Remember, we want to check that? Remember we did that one time?
Yes.
So instead of doing this, we want to say, and this is in the login, right? So if is set, then in brackets, $_ session status, I think it is. Check session status, session. Yeah, no. I can't remember. Check if session is set.
Set session.
Session, no. Session start. Okay. Well, that just does this, but that's not really what I want. If the session is set.
Just check if it's null.
Yeah, I could, but I want to make, I think there's a way of doing it where you check the session status. Check session status in PHP. I think that's what it is. I can't remember. Session status. See, this is also related. See, session start. So I'm going to see if what it does here. Function is session started, right? And then it's going to check to see session status. Version compare, session status. Okay, return session status equal to PHP active session. If the PHP session is active, then return true. Otherwise, return false. That's what it's going to be. So this line right here. Bear with me. You'll see what I'm talking about in a second. If this works properly. So instead of is set, you go, bam. If session status is PHP session active, right? And you don't do is not. Okay. Then you session start. Right? Just in case. Let's check it again. So did I register the guy? Let's check to see if he's registered already, because if that, then I'm just going to get an error. So browse. Arg. He's in there. Let's take another one. Another superhero. Adam West. Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne. The Batman. Hey, Bruce Wayne, the Batman, submit. Cool, right? Games list. And we're logged in right away, right? So we've accomplished, mission accomplished for that, right? So the great thing about this is, I know we're running over time, and I'm going to stop now because we can keep going. But the idea here is that we've moved the data from our register PHP page, which is this page, which should not be called register anymore, right? Well, it can be, but it doesn't matter. Well, this page here is going to go into a views. Under views, there's going to be an authentication or users page or whatever it's going to be. And then inside of in the authentication place, right, the authentication folder, subfolder of the views folder, we're going to put this in there. Because everything is going to have its own. Now we've broken it out. We've said, well, there's not much code here, right? Nothing's going on. I mean, I could physically include this in our PHP, like in the other page itself. And the step that we have to take to do that is so small and dumb. I mean, we can have literally no PHP in our views whatsoever. We're going to get there, but I want to build it up slowly, because it's a little bit. That's it. Yeah. I mean, there's so many things, but we don't have to do that. Like for your stuff, don't worry about this. For usernames, for login, register, those can be static pages for you. Okay, I don't need you to do that. This is just reorganizing yet again, playing with PHP, reorganizing our stuff, right? So that way, when it comes to logging in and registering, we've done it. We've set up a separate users controller now, and the user controller right now has only the things we need, right? So, for example, we have the login and register page. Now, the logout page, that's something we can totally add in, because that's just it's just a little function. So you can go, but I'm going to do the same thing. So here's the session start. I'm just going to check the same thing. If it's started, great. Not otherwise, log out.
And then you just remove that page.
And I'm gonna remove this page completely, and I'm gonna change these. I'm gonna do that right now before I leave. So when you see the page next time, if you guys want to go, I'm just gonna finish off this thing. I'm just gonna move them into the views, and we're done.
Okay.
Okay, guys. Thank you very much for sticking around. I appreciate it.
Have a good day.
You too. All right. So what I mean is, if I go to our users page, I'm going to create on the bottom here, right? Another function. Here's our function. We're going to call this logout, right? And we don't need to really return anything here. We're just going to do something, right? So the function logout doesn't do return a damn thing. So logout is just all this stuff. And we're going to put it inside of our users page inside the logout function, right here. Okay, so now this is when we're going to execute the logout, but we're going to do the same thing with our session start, just in case. I want to make sure. So I want to kind of do the same check that we did earlier when we did our login, which is just in case, we haven't hit that, or we haven't somehow able to hit our session. Then we're going to do this idea of session start. Probably don't need all this stuff. If we actually refactor, we can probably avoid. Okay, cool. So our logout is there, and inside of our logout page, it's pretty empty, which means I can probably get rid of it. So we're going to delete. Delete logout page. Safe delete with usage search in comments and strings. Yeah, sure. Index.php. Yeah, no, what I'm going to do is just tell them to shut up, right? So I don't have to do that anymore. So delete. And no, we don't want to do this anymore. Just go back. Okay, so now that our logout is there in our index.php, right? We normally go and do a register. These things are okay. Register logout, though, we don't need to do this anymore. We don't have a logout page, and I knew this was a problem when I first saw it, right? So at the top of my page, where I include stuff, this is the one place that I can include my include once when I do my logout, right? Because I'm not doing anything else in here. So instead of all this, my template string being whatever, right? I'm not going anywhere from here. I'm just going to redirect right away to log out. Right? So there's no template string to go to. In fact, I'm going to log in my logout. My login string is going to be my, I'm going to go back to my index page. So I'm going to go back to my, my home page, which is just, where is it? Game details, register, logout, login, contact about. Oh, it's just this. Home. Because when I'm logged out, I just want to go to my home page, right? So that's what's going to happen there. So this is changed to that. And what we're going to do here is we're going to say include once. Say controllers, and then users.php. We're going to say logout, perform logout. Done. Now it's done here, right? And the reason for this is because our ID is not going to change. Whenever this is our router. So whenever ID comes here to logout, this is where it's going to happen. In our page right here. It's not going to happen in our dashboard or anywhere else. It's going to hit this page eventually, and then it's going to log us out. Let's check it. So go back to this, log in, create, log out. We're good. That worked. So log out now is deleted, and now I have these two pages, login and register. And now is the time when we create the views, and we'll stop for today, right? Because I'm tired. So we're making another view. Now, notice that we've been using the same games, users. So views for users. That's probably what we're going to do. Make a new folder. You can call it auth or users or security or whatever you want. I'm going to call it, in this case, I'm going to call it users, the users folder. And inside of our users folder, we're going to take these two pieces and move them in. Now it says you want to search for references or whatever. We're going to do it on our own. We got to think about when we do our login and register. The only time we do it is in our index page, which is down here. So, bam. Now we don't need this users folder. We can delete it. Right? And inside of our index page, when we do our login, it's not users login, it's views. Users lowercase login, right? And same thing with register. And this is the same thing. Our logout is not our controller. We just do a controller. There's nothing to do. There's no page going to be rendered with our logout, right? That's why we don't have to do a page. Or we're re-rendering our home page. That's what's happening here, right? And our register page, where did I put a register page? Oh, missed it. There it is. And this again, this is views, and then it's users, lowercase, and then register. Again, it's just reorganization, but now it looks so much nicer than it did before, right? And there really isn't anything else to do in terms of organization. We've reorganized everything. We've got our models, views, and controllers. Our controllers are slick because all we have is these two things right here. The next trick would be for us, and which we're going to do next week, is to get that page stuff done. And we're going to do two things next week. I want to show you how to make dynamic pages, right? I'm not going to do pages. I'm going to do posts, right? I'm going to store stuff in the database, although you can probably figure it out if you really work at it, right? And then the routing for those pages, there's no routing, right? Remember, all I'm doing is I'm passing in information, right? So I'm going to have a page. My views is going to have a page template, right? And under my page template, I'm just going to run this. Now, dashboard. This is something else we haven't done. Dashboard should be secure, right? And the other thing we missed that we haven't done yet is our navbar. In our partials, like I said, in my navbar.php. And let me just get rid of all this stuff to show you. I want to show my display name, my navbar. Where do I get it from? What do you think? Yeah, so no, here's my my stuff here. I want to get my information from my display name, right? So where do I get my information from my display name in my navbar? If my navbar itself, right? My navbar itself, if you look at this thing, has nothing to do. It just is a session start, right? When I start off, and I want to display if I'm logged in, if my session is logged in, right, then that's information, right? My session keeps track of if I'm logged in or not, right? What else can my session keep track of? Whatever I want is the answer, right? So let's try it out, right? So remember that whenever we log in my users controller, my controller here, and if I go to my users controller, right, do I ever set the session to is logged in? So there it is. Session is logged in is equal to true, right? Okay. Where else do I check it? So if I do a control F, and if I say, as an example, $score on $_ session, okay. Type it in. All right. 4 matches. Okay, let's go up the chain here. So there's session is logged in is equal to true. Session is logged in. If it's that session is logged in, so I check to see if it is for authentication. I don't need to do that there. Here's where session is logged in is equal to true. I'm setting the session to log in is equal to true, right? Well, this is a great opportunity, right? I might as well set another session variable where display name right is equal to something. Where do I get the display name? Well, here I'm selecting my password from users, and in my statement, I'm fetching my hash password. And my hash password is password. But then I also have inside here, hash password also has the display name. Using that methodology here. Why? Because inside of here, when I go to localhost and I look at my display name, it's lowercase display name, like just like password is. So if I go back to this, lowercase display name is equal to display name. So I set it here. That's when I log in, right? And that's it. Once I set that display name, then I can check it. And the only time I'm going to check that display name ever, is when I'm logged into my Navbar. So my Navbar, I'm checking to see if I'm logged in. If I am, I got my display name. If I got my display name, then I can use it and I can list it as a list item, right? Without an href, in fact, right? So I can say a list item, right? And the list item is going to be the display name, right? So I'm going to say, and again, you have to be very careful how to do this, but I want to put an echo statement in there. So I want to say PHP echo, right? And then we're going to say something like, let's close off that in there. And we're going to put inside there $ session, and then name. Now, if we did it correctly, if we're going to have a display name inside of our, next to our login, we'll have a little display name. If we didn't do it correctly, then we're going to have an error. We can fix that next time. Cool. Log in. Log in. Got nothing. So that was incorrect, right? So if we got it, then it should be between here. Log out, because, did I do it right? If is set session is logged in, then PHP session display name. Echo display name. If he's logged in. And we set the display name. Do we record? We ever get the display name back? Let me go back to users PHP. So session status, hash password. Just checking to see where this happens. Hash passwords here in the fetch, right? And we're selecting our password from users. Or passwords is equal to users. And okay, well let's print that out. Let's go. Just curious, right? So maybe it's not transferring. So we're going to say echo hash password display name. Let's just see what happens, right? So maybe it's an array that we're getting back again. Maybe we have to do a display toString, right? So log out and log in. Okay, it says call stack. We're getting nothing. Notice undefined index display name and C users. On line 32. So we're saving it, right? We're saving it in our database. It's there, right? We're logging in. We want to pull in not just the username, right? Because we're not just getting the username. Where username is equal to username. Got that information, but we want to return. We want to fetch something, and we're fetching the password. A hash password is what we're returning in our fetch, and we're not really doing what I want to do. So what about if I return just this? Is it an array that we get back? Password. I think we get an array back, even if we get fetch. Let's see. Login. array. That's way up here now. Okay. And just curious, let's go back to what we had before. We didn't check high enough. And login. No, we get nothing. All right. Can I return, or just return the password? Let's see if I can at least return that. So, sorry, this is just testing. That's what it comes down to. So yeah, display name. Where did I do that? Hash password. Statement echo. Here we go. Let's do password. And login. So that's weird. Login. Login. Didn't return done thing, right? Which means we can't return that because it does come back as true. Where this does come back as true because this has no value, right? Because we're selecting password from users. Now, can I select password and more? I can select more than one object, no? Password and display name. Now, do I have to do and? Name. Are you sure? Password and display name from users. And then where username is username, I don't have to do this password stuff because I'm not doing this part ever again. I can kind of hone that up a little bit. And let's see if I can get it now. So if I change this from display name session, that should work actually. Password, display name. Let's make sure that passes now. Display name from users. Let's see if this all works. Dandy. Log out. Log in. Aha.
Fine.
It's just not doing it right. That's all. It's there. Now we're going to fix it. All right, so that fixed that part. Let us get the display name out of there. And we do this part. We actually have the display name is equal to this, but we share it inside of a session variable, which we pass forward into our Navbar. And now we've just tried to do a simple list item, but we don't want to do that. We want to change the class. Do I want to make it an anchor tag? What's happening? Why is it giving us that information? Because it's not being put in an anchor tag or anything special. We don't have, it's not a link. It's a non-link on the Navbar. Right? That's what we're actually doing. So let's think about this for a second. We're echoing that in there, right? Which means you're putting in text instead of a list item. Why is it returning it that way? It's not an anchor tag. Otherwise, you'd have this, and we don't have the username itself inside of an anchor tag. But why would that cause me to have that weird thing? And why is it black? Oh, I know why. Because we're using Bootstrap, and Bootstrap is having a non-link text inside of Bootstrap. So if I'm not wrong, that would be in components, Navbar, forms, buttons, text, Navbar text. That's what it is. Class Navbar text. And now they're in a p tag. Wrap strings of text in context with navbar text usually on a p tag for proper leading and color. Okay. All right. We can do that. So copy, and we'll put that inside of our, that's weird. But I'm okay with it. I don't care how it's done. So I'm going to put it inside of here. And we're going to get this echo right here. To there, cut it out. And we'll put that in there. And we should have a much nicer looking link. Let's check it out. And we'll go back to here. And we'll refresh. And we'll say welcome, so and so, not just that. Welcome plus this. So welcome, comma, and then that. Back, and refresh. Right? Makes sense? So now you can't click on this, but it's just our text. And now we have the ability to see who's logged in, which helps us test actually on the link. Guys, I think we've done way more than we should. We're 6:42 already. I told you we were going to stay till 7, right? We'll log out, and I think we're good for the day. So now let's upload to GitHub. So we'll say added, so migrated user logic to user's controller. We're going to do this. That's going to be our. I want to do that. Cut that out. So maybe I can cut that. Control X. Okay. Let's try it again. Git add dot. Git commit -m. Graded user logic controller. There we go. Push origin master. There we go. And we're good to go. And that should give you everything you need to do proper model view controller kind of stuff. We haven't really touched model yet, but model is a whole other kettle of fish. Questions for you guys? I know there's only 2 of you here, but it's a fantastic, type of time, right? No, you're good? You understand what we did? You understand what we did? Yeah, but if you look at the code, the thing for you to try and do is do it on your own. Try and build out your site, and then that's going to teach you what to do, right? Because we learn by doing. Good. Okay, guys, for the people watching, thank you. That's all for today. We'll see you next week.